Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're finally going to be talking about the newest album from Ty Segall called First Taste. I'll be very honest, I thought Ty Segall had run out of ways to surprise me. Now, granted, for a guy who cranks out as many albums as he does, I was open to the possibility, but even with the return to form that was Freedom's Goblin last year, I really thought that was testing the boundaries for how far Ty Segall was going to venture outside of his comfort zone. Ground himself in some garage rock scuzz, tack on some added instrumentation, venturing into other subsets of proto-punk, early metal, and even glam rock around that era, but likely not go much further. I thought he'd probably stay in this territory, maybe hopefully tighten up the writing and the production, and he'd have enough fertile ground to harvest for, well, given how quickly he puts out albums, maybe another 3 years or so. You never know. So I'll admit, when I heard that his newest album, First Taste, was ditching guitars altogether, well, it reminded me of first when the news broke that the Mountain Goats were leaving guitars behind for goths, but even then, singer-songwriter material like that had some proven ground to expand. Whereas I'm not sure I can ever count how many garage rock acts that don't have a guitar lead. So I had no unearthly clue how Ty Segall was going to tack on strings and keyboards to make this work, but I definitely wanted to hear it. So, okay, what came out of First Taste? You know, this is a sort of experimental project where I just wind up frustrated that it doesn't really work for me. Because in essence, if you've heard a middling Ty Segall album this decade, you will have heard on a compositional level exactly what First Taste is giving you, just this time paired with more jangling, fractured texture, and a lingering sense that Ty Segall slid back a step after the more tuneful and striking and interesting Freedom's Goblin. At least with a project like Emotional Mugger that I didn't even really like that much, there was a disconcerting thematic weirdness with a defiantly unique flavor and tone. First Taste, unfortunately, though, just reminds me of Ty Segall's expected formula and ideas just stripped down to the bones, and then lacking the richer tones in order to give them a lot of body. In other words, I get the appeal, but it doesn't really work for me. Not that good. And it doesn't help matters that most of the tones that we do get can be kind of questionable, so let's start there. Because as I've already specified, if you've heard a middle-of-the-road Ty Segall project, there's little compositionally that is all that different than his usual material. In other words, he's writing garage rock with a splash of psychedelic texture, which manifests here as more layered vocal overdubs and harmonies, the occasional piano flourish, and a horn section that doesn't mind playing for minor keys and more brang dissonance, because this is Ty Segall, and he has zero problem stepping into that territory at the expense of maybe a better hook or groove. But Ty Segall often also chose meaty, noisier guitar lines to fit at the centerpiece of a lot of these compositions, which allowed for more striking bass interplay and grooves, or could better blend with the percussion and drums, or at least complemented his nasal brang vocals, or masked how rough some of his falsetto can be. It was the glue that held all these compositions together, and yet when you scrap that away to replace it with synth fuzz that just does not have the same blending or body, or just drops in more developed textured percussion or acoustic grooves, some of which might be running through more distorted amplifiers in order to get that scuzzy sound, the cracks have become a lot more evident. And if he was aiming for First Taste to hit as hard as earlier projects, just with a slightly different palette, yeah, it doesn't really happen, mostly because the bass grooves just don't have the same body and reinforcement, and the drums just do not pack the same oomph or cracking presence. And again, the problem isn't so much the tones plugging the hole are bad, so much as they are just kind of inconsistent. The grinding fuzz and sputtering low end of taste might initially make you think that your skull is melting, but there is potential to it. I like that tone. And along with the deeper, rickety groove of the arms that breaks into some noisier sizzle, or the piano accented horn screeching, tinny rattle, the strumming, and the developed low end of Radio and Lone Cowboys, they show exactly how this sort of approach has real potential, even if the latter case takes a little bit too long to get going. But then there are the tonal choices that just leave me really cold. They don't really match with what he's trying to do, like whenever the woodwinds and flutes show up, or you get the tones that I actively don't flatter anything. I get that I Worship the Dog is trying to be as dark and sleazy as possible, but that lead nasal squonk doesn't get any less annoying even with some of the meteor grind around it. And that's not counting songs like Ice Plant that feel like three mediocre pieces smashed together, or the choppy, overlong groove broken up by the blaring horns of Self-Esteem, or how When I Met My Parents Part 1 sounds basically unfinished. Kind of a shame because I actually liked a lot of the melody there. Hell, even the songs I like, they don't rise to the best that Ty Segall's released. Or in the case of songs like The Fall, they're basically trying to rely on percussive energy over a fully fleshed out composition. Why else is that extended drum solo there, which basically feels like it's going nowhere and really fits awkwardly with the rest of the song? And you know, if I felt the lyrics or the ideas being explored were all that compelling or fleshed out or going in an interesting, fresh direction, that'd be one thing. But the more listens I gave First Taste, the more I felt that this acrid self-awareness and sarcasm wasn't really redeeming it. It's pretty obvious early on that Ty Segall is aware he is subverting or challenging his audience's expectations, and that'll probably not going to be a pleasant result, not to everyone's taste. Which he then proceeds to mock the audience with faux submissive jives like on Whatever and I Worship the Dog. And in a sense, I can't really begrudge him where his inspiration will take him. I sing them as a prime example of him not really apologizing, just trying to lean into it. And a song like Radio highlights how the industry can make anyone slaves of trends or the machine or just your established patterns, which I'm not sure I remotely buy coming from Ty Segall, who has never really had hits or consistent radio presence, so this line of attack falls very flat coming from him. Now, of course there are moments of self-doubt and questioning. Ty Segall's always been very conscious of human frailty and vices along cuts like Self-Esteem and When I Met My Parents Part 3, where he will even question his own mind and judgment here. And I can appreciate a closing song like Lone Cowboys, where he sets out his more rugged, individualist path. You'll get worn down with time, but if you plant long enough, you'll get there. But the meta-commentary across this album does have a real bitter streak that doesn't help the provocation. Again, this album isn't that far removed compositionally from what we would expect from Ty Segall, but the arc of the project is a self-aware taunt, then mocking the audience, and then finally playing the martyr until you realize he's probably not going to get crucified en masse. We've kind of got used to the weird pivots. It's not all that surprising. And that's the weird thing about First Taste. Yeah, I don't think it's very good, but I'm not seeing the dramatic outcry castigating this album or anything near the blowback that Ty Segall was anticipating. Hell, most folks I was talking to didn't even know this came out, much less that there was aware that there was a change in direction. But it's not a bad listen either, it's just more misguided and underwhelming than outright bad, which for an album that's trying to bait more controversy, that might be the more worrisome indictment. And thus, strong 5 out of 10, more for the diehard fans than anyone else. I'll admit it is disappointing, especially coming off of Freedom's Goblin and the quality that I know Ty Segall can bring forward. And while I said that I thought he had run out of ways to surprise me, the sad thing that as a fan for years now, he might have just run out after all. I don't know. It happens. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I'll admit this is a bit of a negative review, and I don't want it to be a crazy negative review, but this was not clicking with me at all. I know Ty Segall can make better, and that's the real disappointment. But if you want to buy or stream it, links down in the description below, polls up there for y'all to tell me how wrong I am. I get what he was trying to do. Again, I appreciate the diversion into this territory, just the tones never came together, and they're not his best hooks either, or his best writing. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And just a friendly reminder to you all that in the next couple days, I will be going on vacation. So my schedule is going to be a little bit more structureless and jumbled, and a little bit more free form as well, like I go on vacation every year. So stay tuned for that. I think I got one more review coming up filmed regularly, plus Billboard Breakdown, and then we'll take to the road. But if you're looking for a Billboard Breakdown on that note, it's on the second channel. Links in the card right here. Till then, though, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.